minutes past 7 this morning, Harry. And as I sat on my seat, the gentleman walked across to me and sat by me. He said, "Hello, sir." And I said, "Hello." He said, "You're going to Lagos?" I said, "I think so, because I did the aircraft." And he said, "He's also going to Lagos." I said, "I assume you are going for Ronke's event." He said, "Sir, if I tell you what happened about Ronke's event in Shell, you will weep." He said he was privileged to interface with the convener, who made a presentation about what they do. And he immediately caught the vision that a marriage between Employment Clinic and Shell will develop something unusually strategic that will capture a roadmap that will begin to grow employment, whereby the employer, i.e. Shell, and the employee will benefit, because he saw Employment Clinic as a platform to do the initial screening that will throw up employable people that Shell could benefit from. The gentleman I was talking to happens to be the general manager, Nigerian content in Shell. And he told me that he got so passionate, himself and a group of them, that they drove the idea of partnering with Employment Clinic to, I think maybe this event, I don't know, another event, to the top management of Shell, who now bought into it. And the top management appointed a Dutchman to invite the convener for a meeting. And of course, after hearing the convener make her presentation like what she did now, the man decided to fly with a vision until one Nigerian went behind the back door and sowed a negative seed that portrayed the fact that those who were pushing for it were going to benefit financially. And that was all the seed that it took for Shell to back out of this. Now, I want to say to you, Ronke, that you may not know that the efforts you are making are registering. There are seeds that will germinate, and when they germinate, you may not even be there. But a lot of people's lives will be affected, and companies. And this gentleman is now thinking of how to sell the vision to other IOCs, because he sees, do not give up. The Bible says for those who are Christians that you do not despise the days of little beginnings. Today, this may look like a small crowd, but the voice has gone out loud and clear. And I'm sure your vision is going to achieve the desired result. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to quickly go through my subject paper, which is Maritime Capacity Development, Filling the Gap Created by the Demise of the Nigerian National Shipping Line. A lot of the young people here may not know that not too long ago, this country had a national line to be proud of, maybe next or equal to the Ghana Black Star Line of those days. Now, the national line, is there anybody here that doesn't know about the national line? Don't be shy. Do you know about the national line? No. So, permit me to go a little bit rudimentary. Every country that engages in export and import of goods will need the utilization of a ship in one form or the other. So, Nigeria, after independence or pre-independence, I don't have the historical background, decided that we were such a major importer and exporter of goods that we should float our own shipping line. In other words, we should own our own ships to carry this goods. That was the primary objective. But in so doing, the fleet of ships got to as much as 30. And to operate a ship, you have a captain and a complement of deck officers. And then you have a chief engineer, a complement of engine officers. And then you have others, other crew, AB, motorman, oilers, and things like that. But at the end of the day, you have a ship that is like a small community floating out there with the master as the governor, or if you like, the president of the ship, representing the ship owner. On an average national line ship in those days, you probably could count up to about a complement of between 30 and 35 people. And as you have a set on board the vessel, you have another set ashore who are on leave. So at any moment in time, you can say that double the number of the complement on a ship is attached or employed by one vessel. Granted that for the purpose of economy, you could move it around in such a way that you have about 3 crew running 2 ships. But the point here is the national line became a very major, veritable source of employment for this country. Besides those who are on the ship, you also had the shore staff. You had an office that managed the fleet, that did the employment, that handled the maintenance, the dry docking, the chandling, and all sorts of things associated with national line. So national line, Nigerian national line, became a very important organ or agency of government. It got so big that they actually had their operational headquarters in Liverpool in England. So they were employing people in the UK, they employed people in Nigeria, and they employed people on this, at sea. What happened? The reason national line became liquidated a few years ago is not my job to mention. But the point remains that when Nigerians took over the helm of running the national line, in a short while, the entire fleet disappeared. When President Obasanjo handed over as a military president, he handed over 29 ships to the civilian president. When President Obasanjo came back in 1999 as a civilian president, he inherited 0 ships. The entire fleet had disappeared. Besides that, I have a paper prepared, but I'd like to talk extensively. Now, besides that, the national line became the principal platform for producing Nigerian mariners. National Shipping Line will employ young school leavers, school sets, and send them to maritime institutions, usually outside this country, to train, go through their cadetship program, become junior officers, get their seat timed, and in a short while, National Line was boasting the best internationally skilled master mariners, which are captains and chief engineers, and other qualifications and ranks. So you had Nigerians who were trained in National Line and were exporting themselves to different parts of the country to gain employment because of their skill. We all know that whatever a Nigerian is involved in, he eventually comes out to be the best. In this country, outside this country. So, the demise of National Line wiped out that platform that was available for training Nigerian mariners. So the first gap that was created was the abrupt stoppage of developing human maritime capacity in the maritime industry. And meanwhile, the country became progressively involved in oil and gas activities, most of which are offshore and deep offshore. And that meant the need to develop another fleet of a different type of vessels, what we call the offshore service vessels. You have anchor handlers, you have platform supply tugs, you have fast intervention, you have security vessels, different vessels of all configurations, specifications, and sizes now began to grow in our country. But guess what? 90% or more of these vessels were now owned by foreign companies. And they were also crewed mainly by foreign companies. The effect of that is that our national waters became exposed security-wise to all commerce. Most of the security challenges we're having in this country, most of the arms, for instance, drugs, and all those dangerous things that are coming in this country are coming into the sea. Very, very, very infinitesimal percentage is coming by air. So, with the demise of National Line that did not encourage the growth of another indigenous fleet, our country became exposed. All sorts of people from different parts of the world were now making Nigeria their haven and perpetrating all sorts of crimes. So that's another gap that was created by the demise of National Line, security gap. Now, those who worked and trained in the National Line type of vessels were not readily and easily adaptable to the offshore service vessels. So what now happens is that you had master mariners, chief engineers, and other ranks who were ashore without jobs, increasing and swelling the ranks of the unemployed. That is that. Now, I'll quickly flip through my paper. Those are the two principal things. Human capacity was affected, security was affected, and of course other things were affected. Capital flight. Those cargo that national fleet was carrying were now being carried by foreign fleet. So the money that would have been earned by national line was now going out of this country, as is the capital flight resulting from foreign ship operators taking over the oil and gas sector. We've identified the demise and the gap it has created as far as employment in the maritime industry is concerned. But there are various government attempts and efforts that have been made by different organs of government to address this gap. One of them is the establishment of the Cabotage Act by government, which ostensibly is to encourage indigenous participation, this time around more in the upstream side of and downstream side of the oil and gas sector. But we all know that 5 years, 6 years down the line, the Cabotage Act has been a failure. It has not succeeded. It has not achieved the purpose for which it was originally intended. There are still more foreign vessels operating illegally in our country. There is still job discrimination. There is contract imbalance. So the Cabotage Act that will have helped to close the gap of the demise is fraught with all sorts of challenges and difficulties. The Act also says, for instance, that the Act created what they call the Cabotage Vessel Finance Fund. Because in this country, the biggest challenge you have if you want to float a shipping line is finance. Our financial institutions have short-term funds and limited funds. And shipping is a long-term business. A ship has a lifespan of approximately 20 to 25 years if well maintained. And most times, you take a facility and the institution wants you to amortize in 3 years. And if you are very, very lucky, in 5 years. And usually, it gives a clear contract. So you have to amortize a 20-year asset in just 3 or 5 years. It's going to be a miracle for your cash flow to work out. So that became a challenge. And the government said, okay, let us support the issue by creating the CVFF, Cabotage Vessel Finance Fund. And then they make all vessel owners, foreign and local, to contribute 2% of their gross income daily into that fund. So you find a situation 6 years down the line where the relevant agency is happy to tell you that the Cabotage Fund has swelled from $40 million to $100 million to $200 million, and meanwhile, in 5 to 6 years, not one vessel has been financed by Cabotage Fund. And the fund is swelling every day. I don't know where the problem is, but I think government should wake up and quickly do something about that. Our organization, Starzs, we are in two sides of the marine. We are ship owners and we are ship repairers. Every year on the average, we have approximately 50 cadets coming from different maritime institutions for their mandatory industrial training, CWES. We see these children, they come for about 3 months, sometimes 6 months, and then they go back and finish their college time. A year after, they appear in your office to say, sir, please, can you help me with sea time? Now, the training of a mariner is principally in two forms, two phases. There's a college phase, and then there's the sea time phase where they must necessarily achieve certain number of months on a ship, gaining the practical experience to qualify to do the professional exam. Just like you have a pilot. You can't have a pilot who goes to Zaria Aviation School and spends all the time there, never flies a plane one day and becomes a pilot. And that's what's expected. So you have a lot of these children running around the whole place, no ship to go on board for their sea time. Another calamity of the demise of national line. In those days, as they are leaving the maritime institutions, automatically national line vessels were there for them to get their sea time. So that gap of sea time for cadet training and other seafarers is gaping at us. We'll look at recommendations to deal with these issues as we go along. So, what is the solution? Or what is our recommendation? The first thing that comes to mind is national line is demised, liquidated, and wiped out. So the first thing to do is how do you replace national line? Government came up with the idea, should we again float another national line? They started with the unity line,